Hi guys, happy Friday. We made it to the end of the week, and not a minute too soon, might I add. I. That is how I feel. How about you? How are you feeling? Let's talk about you. There's Miss Anita. Hello, my friend. And Sarah, hello. Oh gosh, you guys, it has been a long one. This week, it is not over. It's just dragging on and on and on. Do you ever have weeks like that where it's just like, I haven't had enough sleep, I'm crampy, I'm cranky. Way too much information for you, but oh man, gosh, this week has just been going on forever. It seems like it's been a month this week. Oh, I'm so glad that the weekend is here. This morning I was laying in bed and I was like, do I get to sleep in today? No, darn, that's tomorrow. I had to get out of the bed. Good morning, Allison. You guys, I'm not complaining, by the way. I mean, I guess I kind of am. But I'm not complaining about being here with you guys. You are the reason why I got out of the bed this morning, as a matter of fact. You know, to get up and spend some time with you guys and to do a fun project. And that definitely gets me going on the mornings where I'm just like, this has been the longest week of my life. It really, I don't know. It's just November. I feel like October flew by. November is going to kind of drag. I have a feeling. So, hi, everyone. Welcome in. Oh no, Nicole, I want you to get better soon, my friend. I do not like that at all. Whew. There's Miss Joan posting some good things for everybody. There's Jane. Hey, Jane. So let's talk project, shall we? Let's talk about what's going on today. So let's see. There was a request over in the Sarah Ellis Designs community group, and the request was for a 3D bracelet jig project. And you know me, I love to give you guys what you ask for. I love it when I have suggestions. So number one, keep the suggestions coming. Number two, if you have not joined the Sarah Ellis Designs community Facebook group, please do that. Please do that. We have a lot of things planned for the group. We're going to do some drawings. We're going to do some giveaways, which are kind of the same thing. Not really. But we are trying to build a community for everybody, right? Which I know there are a lot of those that already exist on Facebook, but we want our community to be one where you can come and not only can you share your designs, but you can also ask questions. That's probably the number one reason why I put together the Sarah Ellis Designs community Facebook group, was because I get asked questions almost every single day. That's part of my job. Product education and just jewelry making education in general is really important to me. And I wanted to give you guys a space where you could share whatever it is that you're creating, but you could also ask questions of me and of the community, because we're not all beginners and we're also not all experts in everything, right? I'm really good at wire wrapping. I'm really good at stringing. I'm really good at, several things, but, there are other things where I'm kind of lacking. And that's where the rest of the community comes in, right? Everybody has their strengths, and it's a great place to come and share and ask questions. If I don't know the answer, somebody in their group is going to know the answer. And that makes me so incredibly happy, right? I love that. I love that we can share with each other. We can bounce ideas off of each other, and we can uplift each other and support each other on our jewelry making journeys. Some of us are only doing it for fun, just as a hobby. Others are doing it because that's their job, and that's what my job is. Yes, see, Jackie says, thank you for helping me be less intimidated with wire. See, that's my goal. That's my goal. I want to open you up creatively and, inspire you to think outside your box, your little realm of things, because it's so fun when you can mix things together, right? You can mix a little wire with your bead weaving, and you can mix your bead weaving with your knotting, and then things become amazing, right? Just the most amazing things happen. So that is my goal. So if you have not joined our group, please join our group. If you've got friends who would benefit from being part of our group, please do that as well. Excuse me. We are a long way from 1,000 members, but when we do make it to 1,000 members, we will be having a huge, it's going to be huge. We're going to have a huge giveaway, and I'm already planning for that. So it's going to be one where there's more than just one person that's going to get something fun. I've got a lot of things up my sleeves, you guys. It's just going to take a minute to get there because we're just now starting to build our community. So all right, let's talk about the 3D Bracelet Jig Project, because that is why we're here today. We are going to be using the 3D Bracelet Jig. You guys, this is an artistic wire product, which means that this is a bead-along product. A lot of you found me through Jesse James Beads, because I am a designer for Jesse James Beads. But before I was a designer for Jesse James Beads, and before I worked for, you know, that TV place, I was and still am an active bead-along jewelry designer. You guys don't see a lot of the things that I do behind the scenes, obviously, and so some of you may not really necessarily associate bead-along with me, or maybe that's where you found me years ago, but I absolutely am a bead-along design team member, which means that 9 times out of 10 the products you're going to see me use are bead-along products, and the 3D Bracelet Jig is no exception to that. This is one of my top 5 favorite bead-along products. Top 5, and I was just thinking before I started this live that I should probably make a post in the group of what my top 5 favorite bead-along products are, and links to those so that you guys can, you know, check them out. Maybe they'll become your next favorite project, or product, not project. It might be your next favorite project. Who knows? So the 3D Bracelet Jig, for those of you who have never seen this before, or if you've got one and you've just never used it, this is a jig on the round, meaning that it is round shape. It has holes all over the surface of it, and it comes with 20 pegs and 20 little stoppers. You place the pegs anywhere in any pattern that you want on the jig, and then you just wrap around it with wire to create bangle bracelets or curved components. There are a lot of different things that you can do with the 3D Bracelet Jig. You would be amazed at all of the things that are possible with something that just looks a little weird, right? But this is oh, okay, there's Pamela, or Jane was answering Pamela. I was like, did I miss a question? Sorry, got sidetracked. So anyway, now I completely forgot what I was going to say. I don't know. I do not know. But I do know that over on the bead-along website, there is a wealth of information and products on the 3D Bracelet Jig, as well as some projects that I have done on the Jesse James Beads website as well, because you can also get a 3D Bracelet Jig from Jesse James Beads. So there are a lot of different places where you can grab one of these guys. They are so much fun. If you don't have one, or if you've got one and it's just sitting in the drawer, you need to get it out and play with it, because it's a whole lot of fun. And you can do, I make earrings with mine, which is crazy, right? Listing top 5, I will list my top 5. I think that's a really good post to make. So I will do that as soon as I can. Don't let me forget, okay? All right, so today's project is going to be an easy one. It is kind of difficult with the 3D Bracelet Jig because there are so many holes involved here. It is difficult for me to teach a pattern that has lots of twists and turns, because it's very easy for you to get lost when you are following that through a Facebook Live. So I'm going to keep the pattern part really, really simple. Just know that it is a simple pattern and you can change it up however you want to. The part that I was asked to show was how to attach beads after you have created a bracelet on the jig. So that's what we're going to do. And then probably the next question that I get most often is, you see the jig and you see the roundness of the jig and you realize this is for bangle bracelets, but it doesn't fit, right? So a lot of people may walk past this in the store or not get it because they look at it and they think, there's no way I can make a bracelet that's going to fit me, it's too small. That's the beauty of the jig, and you can make adjustable bracelets with this. Once you create a pattern, then you pull it apart and it becomes big enough to fit over your wrist or over your hand and then onto your wrist. So don't be discouraged by the size of this guy. It is no way a representation of what is possible size-wise as far as Bangle bracelets are concerned. You can even make necklaces on this. Can you believe that? All right, so let's get down to it. If you guys have questions, definitely pop them in there. I've got some designated yellers in the house, so they will let me know if I miss the questions, because you guys know I always miss the questions. I get a little carried away. All right, and let's get to it, shall we? Thank you for sharing, by the way. Everybody who is saying that they are sharing the Facebook Live, I appreciate that so much. You have no idea. It's one of those things that I can't do myself when I am actually doing a Facebook Live. Like, I could get in there and like do it, but it takes time away from you guys. So Ramona says, a necklace? Yes, ma'am. It is possible. It is possible. Crazy, right? Okay, so as far as the beads are concerned, you guys may recognize these because we used some very similar flowers in a project that we did with the tying station not too long ago. And I showed you guys some of these little acrylic flowers that I had in some different colors and shapes. So I pulled out some of the green and kind of a peachy pink color for today's bracelet. And I actually was looking for some of the check glass beads that I have in flowers. I cannot seem to find those anywhere, but I feel like there are a lot of you out there, particularly those that watch that jewelry television thing that shall not be named. There once upon a time was a time when you could get check glass flowers that were shaped this way as far as like how deep they were. These are very, very shallow, and the check glass flowers are very similar to that. As far as where I got these, I've had these for years. I really don't know for sure. I know that once upon a time I ordered some off of Etsy, but you guys, it's been so long ago that I really don't know. These are just from my stash. And then I picked out some Swarovski bicones because you can't go wrong with Swarovski, and bicone shape is such a versatile shape. So I picked out some Swarovski bicones to go in the centers of my flowers, okay? You can use whatever kind of beads that you want to for this project. You do not have to use flowers. You can use just regular beads. Rondelles look really beautiful in the loops, and if you want, I can show you how to do that at the end, okay? All right, so what else are we going to need? Well, I'm going to use some head pins for this, and I'm using the ball head pin. Really and truly, it makes no difference if you want to use head pins, fancy head pins, or if you want to make your own head pins. Any of those things are going to work. And you can even just cut your own wire. A lot of times that's what I do. And honestly, I would love this project minus the head pins and with some beautiful green artistic wire to wrap around to make it look like vines. But I am really, really low on green. Like the only green color I had was Christmas green, and it just did not go with these green flowers. So we're making it work with what I've got at the moment. But that being said, I just made a really big beetle on order. So hopefully I'll be getting some samples soon so we can use some different colors of artistic wire if that is something you guys are looking to do. I know you guys like the colors of the wires. All right, so I am also going to need the pegs and the stoppers for the jig. So I'm going to move this out of the way and let's talk about the pegs and the stoppers, okay? So the jig itself is going to come with 20 pegs and 20 stoppers. And these are very similar to other jigs in that you've got a peg here that's smaller on one side and larger on the other side. It fits right down into the jig. The problem is that because this is a jig that's on the round, your pegs will fall out. So to solve that problem, each peg comes with its own little stopper. These are just little rubber stopper tubes, and they just slide right onto the back. And that's going to hold your peg in place. Now you don't have to worry about it slipping out. And guys, these are really, really sturdy. So you can do a lot of wire wrapping and twisting and turning with this, and you don't have to worry about losing your peg at all. Also, it is definitely worth mentioning that the jig comes with 20 of the pegs and stoppers, but they're all the same size. However, on the Beadalon website, you can actually get some of the pegs in different sizes. So just know that if you're looking for some pegs, they all still fit in the same holes, but the outer portion of the peg is a little bit bigger or a little bit smaller. So if you need some that are different than the ones that come with it, you can buy those extra, okay? All right, now something else that you're going to need for your bangle bracelet is some of the artistic wire, large wire crimp connectors. And some of you are already familiar with these, some of you are not. This is a wonderful way to create a cold connection with your wire. Okay, so instead of doing a wire wrapped loop to connect your two ends, you can actually crimp these by placing the two ends of your thick wire in either end, and then you're going to crimp it. And you can actually do that with a regular pair of crimpers, or there is a specific crimper tool just for the large crimpers, and that's what I've got right here. Okay, so you can see, this is unlike a regular crimper because it only has that moon shape. Or I'm sorry, not the moon shape. It only has the macaroni shape. It doesn't have that little oval shape, right? It's just to crimp down on these great big crimpers. So if you don't have any of these though, however, it doesn't mean that you can't do the project. Coming with your 3D bracelet jig is a packet of instructions that are really well written, by the way. And you just follow the steps and it will show you how to do a wire wrap to finish off your bangle bracelet design in the event that you don't have these guys, okay? Because these guys actually didn't come to existence until after this. So either way is going to work. Either one is going to be the perfect solution. Okay, so let's get started with this. So like I said, when I got started, we're going to keep the pattern really simple because it's easy for the pattern to kind of get lost in translation over a Facebook Live. So I'm going to keep it as simple as possible. So I've already placed one of the pegs and it is on the outermost edge here, right? So I'm going to go all the way around the jig in that same row, but I'm going to skip 2 holes. So I've placed a peg, staying in that same row, I'm going to skip 2 holes, and then in the 3rd hole, I'm going to place another peg and another stopper. Okay. Then I'm going to skip 2, another peg, and another stopper. I'm going to go all the way around the top row in that pattern. Okay, skip 2 holes, place a peg in the 3rd hole. Okay, I'm going to go all the way around. Skip 2, place 1, skip 2, peg goes in the 3rd, skip 2, and the peg goes in the 3rd. Okay, now that is as far as I can go in that top row. But what you're going to notice is that here at the end, there's 1, 2, 3 holes that are separating the first peg and the last peg. That's okay. Okay, totally fine. Not a problem. Now, coming back to our very first peg, okay, we want to skip an entire row. So there's this row that's directly down and it's off, you know, it's more of like a diagonal where those holes are situated. I'm going to skip that row and I'm going to come down. Let's see, I can't remember if I skipped, I can't remember if I skipped 1 row or 2 rows. Let's take a look at it. All right, so I actually skip 2 rows and I'm coming to the center of 2 pegs. So it's going to be kind of this triangle shape. Okay. So top row, skip a row, 3rd row down, place your peg, and it's going to be in the middle here of 2 pegs up here on the top. Now see how the pattern can get it can get confusing. So that's why we're going to keep it really, really simple, because trying to explain placement of all of the pegs I just don't want anybody to get super, super lost. But then we're going to repeat the same. We're just going to stay in the same pattern. Once you get that first peg down for the further down, now we're just going to continue the same pattern. We're going to skip 2 holes and place a peg. And when we place that peg, it's going to naturally be in that triangle formation. Okay. So I'm going to put the stoppers on the back. Okay. Skip 2, place a peg, and put the stopper. Okay. Skip 2, place a peg, and put the stopper. Same thing, skipping 2. Whoa. Okay. And guys, I forgot to mention, I did mention that there are pegs on the Beadle On website in different shapes. I also want you to know that you can buy replacement pegs in this shape as well, this size. I have lost, I can't tell you how many pegs I've lost. So you can very affordably buy replacement pegs if you lose yours, because I've either lost the peg or the plastic stopper. And I've equally lost both. All right, so we placed our last peg, and again, you'll notice there are 3 holes here between our last placed peg and our first peg in that row that's 2 down from the top. Okay, so that's it. This is what we've got. We've got all of our pegs placed on our jig. And guys, you don't have to use this pattern if you don't want to. This was just an easy one to put on here really quickly. You can get as intricate and loopy as you want with this, which is what makes it so much fun. I'm just giving you a basic so that we've got a good place to jump off from. Okay. Now, as far as wire is concerned, where in the world did I put my wire? Okay, as far as wire is concerned, you do want to use some thicker gauged wire for this, okay? So my recommendations for wire gauges when it comes to the 3D bracelet jig is this. You want to start, the smallest gauge wire that I would use on the 3D bracelet jig is 16 gauge, okay? If you have 18 gauge wire at home, it will not hold its shape, but it is the perfect size for practicing a design and, you know, playing around until you get the right design that you want. But you will not be able to create a bracelet with the 18 gauge wire and it hold the bangle shape. So you're gonna have to make the move up to the 16 gauge wire, which I realize is a very thick gauge wire for a lot of you and may be challenging, but trust me, if you want your bangle bracelet to retain its shape, you definitely want to make that move. So you can go upwards of 16 gauge, 16 gauge, 14 gauge, 12 gauge. Those are probably the 3 most common. 16 and 14 are probably the 2 easiest to work with. The 12 is, I mean, you're really starting to get into some very, very thick wire. So I would keep your heavier gauge designs for more simple designs because you really do struggle to get around the pegs with a really thick gauge wire. So 16 and 14 are definitely my recommendations for the gauge size. Okay, and it makes no difference what color. I've got a little bit of both here. Okay, the gold that I have is in 16. The silver that we're going to use for today's project is in 14. So I'm actually going to use the 14. Vicky says, if you have an anvil, can you work hard in it? You absolutely can. There's no reason why you can't. The only issue with it is that not everybody's got an anvil, so that's why the recommendation is what it is. But if you've got a if you've got an anvil where you can place a round bangle shape onto that cone section, absolutely go for it. You definitely can use the 18 gauge wire. Okay, now as far as measurements are concerned, that is also something that is always going to be a little bit different. So I try to use the spool. If I've got just a round of wire, I never cut any off. I just start with what I've got and make my way around. And I know that that is frustrating to some people who want exact measurements for things, but you have to realize that a lot of things are going to make that measurement different. The difference in the gauge of the wire is going to adjust that measurement a little bit. The pattern that you use is going to adjust it a little bit. Takes a little bit of wire to make those loops. So you're always going to need more than you think that you need. So really the safest bet is just to use from the spool and just cut off when you get to the end. Jane says, would you, hold on, let's see. Would you do the 16 or larger if you use raw brass wire? Jane, that's a really good question. And I don't honestly know for sure what would be the best with the raw brass. Honestly, I haven't used any raw brass wire in a while, and I know that can get kind of expensive. And that's why I would just stick with, you know, your artistic wires and your German style wires for this. But I'm not real sure. We need to look into that, Jane. Don't let me forget, because that's a really good question. Joan says, how would you crimp the ends of 18 gauge wire together? You would not crimp the ends of 18 gauge wire together. That is why, another reason why you may not want to use 18 gauge wire on this. And that is because there's not a crimp connector that is made for the 18 gauge wire. These large crimp connectors are specifically sized for different gauges of wire, and there isn't one for the 18. So you would have to use the wire wrapping method to finish your ends. Jane says it seems softer. If it seems softer, I don't know. Maybe you would want to jump up to the 14 gauge. I'm not real sure. Not real sure. It is softer. It feels a lot like sterling. Sterling is really soft. Raw brass is not quite as soft, but it's more like artistic wire. Okay, so to get started, I'm just going to leave myself a little bit of a tail. The first thing you want to do is you want to find that very first peg. And you're going to know it's the first peg because there's going to be 3 holes before it, right? It's the only one that's got 3 holes that come before it. So this is the very first peg that we placed. That's where we want to start. Now, it makes no difference whether you want to go clockwise or counterclockwise, and if you want to alternate, but you do want to remain consistent with your pattern, okay? So with this one, I'm going to go counterclockwise, around the first peg. And the first peg is always a little tricky, okay? So I went counterclockwise around the first peg, and now I'm just going to guide my wire over here to the next peg, which is down here, okay? And I'm going to go clockwise around it to the third peg, and I'm going counterclockwise. So that's what my pattern is going to be. I'm going to alternate clockwise, counterclockwise, okay? All the way around. And I'm just going from peg to peg. Okay. And you'll notice I'm turning the entire jig in my hand. That's going to be personal preference. For me, it's easier to turn the jig than it is to wrap the wire and hold the jig stationary, right? But I've seen people do it either way, so just do whatever is the most comfortable for you. I just find that it's easier for me if I go around by turning the jig, okay? All right, so this is my last peg, okay? And I want to leave myself a little bit of tail here. It doesn't have to be a really long tail because we are going to trim some of that off, but I am ready to trim off. So I'm going to snip my wire, and this is what I've got left, right? That's why I don't really know what the measurement is. It's just easier to do it that way. Okay, now before you Jane, you're funny. Every time, I'm sorry, not every time. I was reading her comment. Okay, whoa, back up. Before you take your wire off of the jig, you want to be sure that your loops are down up against the surface. And you can see where this one is slanted. That loop is not up against the surface of the jig. You can see. So you can do two things here. You can use your bent chain nose pliers, okay, and you can push with that bent portion of the pliers to push that wire up against the surface of the jig, okay. Some people find that it's a little sharp here on the edge and it makes a mark on the wire. If that is the case, use your round nose pliers, and instead of coming at it from, straight up and down, come at it this direction with your round nose pliers, and it definitely won't mark up the wire when you go to push it up against the jig. You just want to be sure that your each loop is going to be an actual closed loop so that things don't sneak in or out of that loop depending on how you're going to use it in your design. So you really want to push it up against the surface of the jig, and that will help to close all of those up. Okay. Hi, Janice. Okay, so now we're ready to take this off. And, oh yeah, that reminds me, Kathleen, at the end, don't let me forget to mention that. All right, so I'm going to take all of the stoppers out, and in order to keep from losing them, I just drop them down into the center. So I pull every stopper off of the pegs and then just drop them down onto the table into the center of the jig here. And most of the time that keeps me from losing anything. I'm not saying every time. Hi, Sherry. How you doing? I love it when I see familiar faces. I love it when I see new faces too. That's always exciting. But it's such a comfort that, we've got our crew. Our crew shows up and it's like, yeah, I can do anything now. I feel like I've got everybody we've got our own little family here. All right, so I've dropped all of these stoppers into the middle, okay? Now I'm going to do the same thing with the pegs. I'm just going to take each peg, pull it, and drop it. Oh, that made somebody mad. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to make somebody mad. Goodness. All right, so hang on, I'll get to the question here in just a second. Well, you're here also. Hello, Motorcrafts. I love everybody. You guys, aw, don't get mad at me. I love you all. All right, let me roll back here before we move on from this. Let's see. Motorcrafts, it's always happy. I'm always happy to see you. All of you guys. And even whoever got grumpy at me, I love you too. So let's see. Angie says, sorry if this was answered, but I got here late. How can you make different sizes on this? Okay, so that's actually a really good question, and it wasn't, nobody asked it, but I did kind of hint on this before we got started, because I don't want people to get discouraged when they look at this and they're like, my hand doesn't fit in that. Like, my hand doesn't fit in there either. But the cool thing about the loops and all of the things that you do and the fact that it's wire means that you can really open it up or you can squeeze it down. So we'll talk about that here in just a second, a little bit more once we get our ends connected. But yeah, I'll show you. I'll show you. Actually, you know what? I've got one that's already done and I'll show it to you. That's a good one. So we're gonna put this together here in just a second. But this one was already connected, so I'll show you. So you can see it looks like a pretty small bangle, which I can get my hand into, but not everybody is going to be able to. So what you do is you just very gently, okay, you don't want to like pull like a crazy person, but because this is wire, you very gentle movements can open it up. And the reason that you can do that is because you'll close your loops as you're pulling, right? And that's going to really open this up and make it much bigger, right? So now I've got a bangle that I can get all the way up almost to my elbow, right? I mean, we're pretty close, okay? But what's super cool is that, okay, you get it on. Say you've got a bigger hand but a smaller wrist, which is the case with a lot of people actually, okay? Then when you put it on, you can do kind of the same thing and very gently squeeze it back down into place. Because it's wire, and even though you might use like a German style wire, which I'm actually using artistic wire today, by the way, Wanda, but you really can adjust it. And the only thing is that you want to do it in very small movements, very controlled, slight movements, because you can, if you do like Wanda was laughing at and wanted to see me like pull it like a crazy person, you can distort it so much that you'll never be able to get it back down into the shape. But because you have loops going on, and regardless of what your pattern is, you're going to have loops. That's just the way a jig works. You always have room for adjustment, because I can very easily pull apart and it just closes my loop up, or I can squeeze back down and you can see it opens the loop up. So there's adjustability in every single loop, which is overall going to affect the size of the bracelet. Cool, right? At least I think it's cool. I think it's pretty nifty. Let's see. Victoria says, can you continue wrapping around the jig to add length? You absolutely can. So with a project, oh my gosh, forgot I had all my pegs and stuff in there. So if you wanted to do an extra long bracelet, or if you wanted to do the beginnings of a necklace, which you absolutely can do, you would actually set your pattern in rows up here, right? And go all the way around. And then you can come down with pegs and continue around this direction. That's how you would get a necklace, or you would get an even longer bracelet, right? Is you can hop down with your pegs. So you go all the way around this way, and then you would just come down in a smooth motion and go all the way around here. That you kind of have to work out with your pattern, but it is 110% totally doable, and I have seen it done to make a choker style necklace, which is crazy cool. But it definitely helps if you need a bigger bracelet. You can always come down a row and wrap around, or you can take off, and if you've still got some extra and you need another loop or two, just leave yourself a little bit extra tail and pop another peg or two on there and wrap, so that you can make up that difference, right? All right. Okay, and that's how you lose your pegs, Kathleen. That is exactly how you lose your pegs. Okay, so we are going to use one of the large wire crimp connectors to connect our ends, okay? But if you want to follow the directions for doing a wrapped loop, those are included, okay? I'm just not going to do that one. It works pretty well with a 16 gauge wire, but when you get up to the 14 gauge wire like this, it tends to make kind of a chunky monkey wire wrap. It's just not my favorite. Okay, so what I want is I want to bring my two ends together, okay, as if they were continuous in the pattern, right? So I do kind of have to bring them in and kind of just eyeball. I'm going to hold them together, kind of look at it and just kind of guess like, okay, that's going to be about enough space. So I need to trim off, and I want to make them both as even as I can so that they are going to kind of meet in the middle. So I've trimmed that one off. That wire just went flying. If Meredith were here, she probably would have hit me over the head with something. Don't do that. Hold. But I don't have an extra hand to like cover the flying wire. So do as I say, not as I do. So I want to trim the other one to meet too. Okay. So what I've got left over is just two really, really short sections of wire. One of them I cut a little too short, but that's okay. Okay. So all that I really need is to make sure that both ends are going to fit into our crimp connector here. And they need to fit evenly, but because I cut one a little short, mine are not going to be exactly even. but you can see how that's going to work out, right? So I've got both ends. Ideally, what you want is, let me take this off of here so that I can kind of explain this to you. What you want is each end of your wire to take up half of the inside of your crimp connector. And so for me, the easiest way to kind of measure that is I a lot of times will go ahead and put it in the Crimper Tool just to kind of hold on to it. And then that way I have my finger free. I won't put it into the wire, but I'm laying the wire right up against it, right? So that I can kind of measure what's going to be halfway with my thumb. Hold my thumb in place that end of the wire in up to my thumb, and then crimp with the Crimper Tool. Okay. And I know that that wire is only taking up half of the tool. So now I don't have to measure on the other side. I can just stick it in there and it's only going to take up half, right? And then again, you just want to use your Crimper Tool. So let's talk about the Crimper Tool for just a second. This one is the tool that is specifically designed for these large crimp connectors. So it has kind of a large macaroni shape to it, and it's got the tooth. It's not a regular crimp because you can't turn it into like a circle, right? That's all it's going to do. And it is a little bit bigger to really accommodate these. However, you can do this with a regular crimp tool or a mighty crimper tool, okay? So don't feel like you need to go out and buy an additional tool. I just have this because I have a tool problem. And I think we all know that. Like, I have to have all the tools. But your standard crimper tool and your mighty crimper tool are both going to work exactly the same way, okay? And I like to keep the rounded section on the outside just because that's the part that is going to be seen unless you cover it up with some wire wrapping. The inside, it really takes a bite. And you can see where that tooth comes down and it takes a bite into that crimp connector, and you can see that wire on the inside. That's exactly what you want. If you don't have a bite taken out of it, you haven't crimped hard enough. You need to put it back in, put it back into the crimper tool and really squeeze down hard on it, okay? And then of course you can always do the tug test to make sure by pulling on both ends to be sure that it is secure. But you don't look at the inside and be like, oh gosh, I ruined it. No, that's what you want. That's how you know that you actually have a really good secure connection here, okay? If you don't like the way that this looks though, you definitely can cover this up with some wire. I've actually seen, I think it was Candy Cooper. It was either Candy or Katie that when the bite section, they put the bite section on the outside, and then they took these little tiny Swarovski baguettes and placed those in there with some glue so that it became like a feature. It was so pretty. And it, you know, it became part of the design, which was really kind of cool. So, you know, there are ways to kind of hide this. I really feel like once you put this on, if you want to wear it without anything on it, or if you add beads to it or the flowers to it like we're going to do, you never really even notice this once you have it on. It's just like any other clasp, right? You just can't take it apart. That was Wyatt who did that. I knew it was somebody fancy. Somebody with a fancy eye. Yeah, super cool. Okay, so now we have our bangle bracelet, and of course we can adjust it. We can pull it out to make it bigger if we want to, or we can squeeze it down to make it smaller, right? And I got lots of frowny faces today. What am I doing to you people? I try to ignore it, like for the most part. I just feel like, okay, it must have been a mistake. But some days I get the frowny faces and I'm just like, what did I do? Please tell me what I did. Please tell me what I did. Okay, so we're ready to add our flowers to this, you guys. And we can do this in a lot of different ways. I'm just going to show you the quick and easy one. Wyatt and his sparkle. I know. I love it. I love it. Katie and Candy are known to be pretty sparkly too, you know? That's why I knew it was somebody. Because it wasn't me. I wish it had been. It could be like, oh, I did that. All right, can you make this so you can open it and close it with a clasp? Yes, you can. And it's funny that you ask that, because as I'm sitting here, I'm remembering all of the 3D bracelet jig designs that I have done over the years. And I never was a fan of the wire wrapping at the ends. So I, a lot of times, would just make 2 loops at the end that were maybe not at an angle like this, but were actually facing each other. And I would put lobster clasps on mine. So yeah, if you want to make this a bangle bracelet that you can actually open and close, you don't have to do the crimp connectors. You don't have to do the wire wrap. You can add a clasp. There's no reason that you can't. In fact, I think there might be some of those projects over on the Beetle On website where I actually did that. I'll have to look, but I'm pretty sure that those projects are posted. Okay, so to get our flowers, we're going to utilize every single one of our little loops here. So I'm going to start with the first loop up from our connector here. Could you use aluminum wire? You can use aluminum wire. However, remember that the aluminum wire is very, very soft, and you probably want to use a pretty thick gauge on that, because you don't want it to come out of its shape as you're wearing it. That's really the only reason that I've not ever used aluminum wire with this, just because I feel like it's so soft and bendy. I don't want my bracelet to like lose its shape. You absolutely can, but I don't know that I would. Although I've seen some people do some pretty amazing things with aluminum wire, so who am I to tell you what you what you can and can't do? All right, I'm going to take one of my head pins. I'm going to thread on a bicone, and then I'm going to thread on one of my flowers. Okay, and I'm just threading directly through the face. Okay, now I'm going to take my head pin and I'm going to stick it through the hole of our first loop. So we're going to use that hole as like or that loop rather, we're going to kind of use that as a little cup to hold our bead. Doesn't have to be a flower bead, guys. Any bead is going to fit in this space, right? Like even if I just take the flower away, I can pop a bicone right in there. Rondelles look gorgeous there. You can do this with any bead you want to. You don't have to use flowers. Okay, don't feel like that. I just feel like the flowers are pretty. They're just pretty. All right, so now I'm going to take my thumb and I'm going to kind of hold with my non-dominant hand. I'm going to hold that in its spot. Okay, and then I'm going to take the tail end of our head pin here and I'm going to wrap around. I'm going to the right. So pick a direction and always go in that direction. So don't do some of them on the right and some of them on the left. I'm going to do every single one of these on the right so that they are consistent. And I'm going to get started and then I'm going to show it to you. Okay, because it is kind of hard to see, but I'm taking that wire and I'm wrapping around the wire directly next to the loop. So now when you look at it from the inside, this really kind of helps. You can see the wire is coming from the back of the flower, right? Coming into the loop, and then I'm wrapping around this straight section of wire coming out this way, okay? Now, if you wanted to make a pinch wire, let me show you. I don't know if I've got a piece of wire that'll do it on hand, just a scrap. This might work. If you don't want to use head pins, you can do this, okay? Just take a thin gauge wire and take your round nose pliers, grab it in the middle, and just kind of fold it in half like this, right? And then thread both ends through a bead, right? Pull it down. So you got a tiny little loop here. Then when you put it through the loop on your bracelet, now you can separate these two wires out. And you can do one to the right and one to the left, right? So you can wrap around on this side and then wrap around on this side. But when you're doing it with just one, always go on the same side every single time, right? Just showing you some extra ways you can do this. Now what you're going to notice is that you do have some movement here. My flower is going to spin like a pinwheel. And I'm totally okay with that, right? You guys know I love movement in jewelry. That's going to happen no matter what. You're just never going to get everything tight enough. But it's not going to come off. It's not wibbly wobbly this direction. It's just, there's just a little movement here. Okay. So wrap around as many times as you want to. It's really just kind of up to you. Like if you want to do a bunch of wraps, but you want to be sure that you do at least 3. Okay. That's really going to secure your bead in place. Then you just want to come in with your cutter tool and trim off. And that's how we're going to secure our beads. And you're going to do it with every single one of them. Always going to the right with your head pin or your wire or whatever you're using. So this time we're going to pick up a smaller kind of peach color bicone, and we're going to pick up a peach acrylic flower going straight through the center. And I'm going to come down to the next loop. So the next loop over from the green one is down here, right? Holding it all on there with my thumb. Yeah, it looks really good with the knotted head pins. And what's cool about the knotted head pins is that you can do it with different colored artistic wire. I wished that I had put this project off long enough so that I could have gotten some new colors in, because I do have some colors coming, but it's going to be probably a week or 2 before they get here. But I didn't want to leave this project, you know, and take the chance of forgetting about it. This would look really awesome if you had some green, and I had green. It was just Christmas green. It just was not the right color, but looks really cool with the knotted head pins in a color, right? So you see the color like a green or whatever you wanted to use, and then the wire wrapping with it, you can wire wrap all the way down and it twists around like vines, and in an artistic wire color. It looks so cool. So yeah, there's so many different things you can do with this. This is why this is one of my favorite tools in the history of tools ever. And that's because there are so many things that you can do with this. I mean, I think of new things every time I put that tool in my hand. I think of new things. You can bead between, right? You can, let's pretend like we wire wrap around this loop here. Bloop, 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 bloop. Wire wrapping, pretending. Okay, pretend I wire wrapped around a few times. Okay, and then put beads between and wire wrap to this loop. So you can bead in between here, bead in between here, bead in between here. So you can fill the whole thing up. I mean, there are so many things, so many things. You can do knotting between here, attach some hemp, right? Tie a knot, do some knots between here. I mean, really, I could go on and on and on. I don't know if you can tell or not, but yeah, I'm a huge, huge fan of the 3D bracelet jig, because the amount of things I can do with this tool is just, it's just amazing. It's just absolutely amazing. There are so many different things. You can make curved components. I've seen, you guys remember when the curved crosses on the bracelets and like in the necklaces were like super, super popular? You can, I'm now bleeding. I'm leaving my DNA on the bracelet. You can do curved components that you can use as barrettes, that you can use as just small sections, right, of a bracelet. They look awesome as barrettes because they have that nice curve that fits just right up against your head. Love, love, right? I've done some really cool earrings that are nice and curved. You can even do hoop earrings on this tool, which, I mean, I could go on forever. I really could go on forever and ever. So if you are ever in the mood to make something with the 3D bracelet jig and you're like, I don't know what to do with it, send me a message, because I can give you 50 suggestions. It's just such a fun tool to play with. One of my favorites. All right, so I just added another bead. Feeling the need to buy. Well, just in case you are feeling the need to buy, you guys, oh, I didn't even put that in the loop. Look at that. I wasn't even paying attention. That's okay. It's close enough. I'm going to leave it. I'll go back and fix it in a little bit. But if you are feeling the need to buy and you would like to use my affiliate link, please feel free to do so. There is a link in the description of today's video. Also in the event for this video, there is a link. As always, you do not have to use my affiliate link at all. I got another grumpy face. I'm batting 1,000 today. I'm just making people mad left and right. You can use my affiliate link if you want to, but you do not have to. Okay, it's there. I make a small commission off of the sales using that link, but it's not necessary, and I would never like bully you into using it. Okay, it's just there if you feel like it. Just once, I'd like somebody to be like, I'm giving you a grumpy face and this is why. So I can like defend myself, right? Just seems so passive aggressive. Whoever you are out there, I love you. I hope you're okay, and I forgive you if you're having a bad day, right? We all have those days. Whatever I've done to upset you, please forgive me. All right, so I'm just going to keep going. Now notice I'm always going to the right with my wire wrapping. A lot of grumpy people today. That's okay. I'm crampy and cranky, and I'm feeling it too. So grumpy face to myself. It's all right. It's all right. I think that COVID and the election and everything else in the world has just got us all a little bit on edge, and that's okay. That's why we all want to share the love, even to the grumpy ones. All right, so again, just placing these in the middle. And at this point, we can just kind of chat because the technique for this is the same, right? Someone did it by mistake. That's what I always think. I'm like, maybe it was just, you know, it was just an accident. It was just an accident. Because I'm such a people pleaser. I'm sure you guys have figured that out by now. I'm such a people pleaser. I don't like to upset anybody, and I definitely don't ever want to offend anybody like that. Just, you know, if I felt like I had offended somebody, it would bother me forever. So yeah, I'm like, it had to just be a mistake, right? Otherwise I lay in bed at night and I'm like, who did I upset and what did I say? Should I write them a note? Just can't take it. Can't take it. It's funny. Speaking of, so you guys know Joan. Joan is one of the moderators in the group. She posts a lot, so don't think that she's like a creepy stalker. She's not. She totally is one of my besties, and so she is moderating in the group, and I asked her to help me with some of the YouTube stuff, uploading the YouTube videos, and she needed me to give her access to the YouTube channel. And I was fully prepared just to give her like my login information because I trust her. But I said, you know, I set your permissions on YouTube, but I don't think you can delete the channel. You know, like, so you can't get mad at me and then like just delete it all. And she was like, I would never do that. And I was like, well, you might never do something like that. But the truth is that if I ever made you mad enough to delete my entire YouTube channel, I probably deserved it. And that is so how I feel. Like if I would have to have done something bad enough to deserve something like that, you know? So that's the way I look at it. Like it's okay that you have access to that, because if I made you that mad, I would expect you to delete my channel and then maybe come over here and pop me in the mouth. I mean, I don't know. You could make a gorgeous Christmas bracelet with poinsettias. Yes. Oh, that would be so pretty. Really, really would be. So just kind of going along, guys, just adding beads, adding the flowers, adding the Swarovski bicones to this as we go, right? And just filling up the empty spaces. And I'm missing a bicone, so it looks like I'm not going to be able to actually finish this the way that I wanted to, just because I don't have enough beads on the table. But we will get pretty close, right? And so I just push that down. That's really the most important part, because I feel like when you very first do this, if you don't push the beads down, then they're going to wobble back and forth this direction, okay? You want to push them down and like hold it in place until you get a good 2 or 3 wire wraps to really make sure that it's nice and sturdy. And you're still going to get this spin. There's no way to avoid that. At least not that I've found. How would you know if Joan is ticked off? You know what, Jane? That's funny, because she and I were talking about that the other day, about how I'm really lucky to have her and you on my side, because I wouldn't want to make either one of you mad. I've kind of got a feeling that that making Joan mad is probably a pretty scary thing, actually. Joan says, can't imagine me making her mad like that. Well, I don't know. I've made some people mad in my lifetime. I'm definitely not a saint, but you know, live and learn, grow up as we do. So somebody asked what the size for the bicones are. So these are kind of funny sizes, actually. Well, the smaller ones are 4mm bicones, but the next one, the green one, is not a 6mm. It's actually a 5mm. And I honestly don't know how I ended up with 5mm bicones, but it looks really pretty with 6s. So yeah, you don't have to use the exact same size as the ones that I'm using. You can mix it up, and you don't have to use bicones either, as a matter of fact. Check glass beads look really beautiful. The check glass rounds look really, really pretty in the center of these flowers, as well as drops. And the drops, when you add a drop to the center, I wish I had one here on hand to show it to you. Let me look to see if I do. I don't think I've got anything that'll work, but when you take one of these flower beads and you put a drop in it, and of course a drop, I'm only talking about a drop that's maybe a 4 or 5 inch drop, where it's large on one end and kind of smaller on the other end, right? It makes it look like a hibiscus with that kind of extra 3 dimension to the center. It's just so pretty. Sarah, a human bucket of bubbles. So yesterday I was a magical unicorn, and today I am a human bucket of bubbles. I love that. I love that. And I just want to share my bucket of bucket of bubbles. Really? Yeah, that is what I wanted to say. I want to share my bucket of bubbles with everybody. It's true. It's so true. All right, so I only have one. I don't know how this happened. I only have one green flower left and no more green bicones. And I actually needed 2, and I've got 1 pink one. So we're just gonna add this one here, and at the end, when we're done, I'll have to go find more bubbles. Not bubbles. I'll have to find more beads. Oh my gosh. Goodness. Oh gosh, you guys. All right, so just kind of twisting that one around, and then I'm going to trim off. And you can see where the colored artistic wires would look really beautiful with this. It really kind of takes it to a bucket of bubbly unicorn. Yes, I like that. But it takes it to a whole nother place if you've got those pops of artistic wire color between here. That looks really cool. You also can take like check glass leaves, and you do have enough room between the bead and the loop where you could actually take a check glass leaf, and you could attach it to each loop so that it hangs from each one of the little flowers. So that would look pretty as well. My flowers are not super secure today, just because we were chatting and going along, but hopefully I've given you some inspiration here, because you can really do anything with your loops once you create them in any pattern. Let me grab another bead here. What do I have that I can just play with for just a second? Let's see. Okay, got a couple of things here. So I mentioned the Rondelles. Open the wrong bag, hold on. Rondelles is one of my favorite beads to add to the loops without anything else. the larger bicones look really cool because they sit so perfectly. Look at that, how perfect. That's like an 8mm bicone. It sits so perfectly in the loop. It's like the perfect little setting for a bicone. Or you can take a rondelle, and the rondelles look really pretty. Well, oh goodness, it looks like the hole on this rondelle is bigger than my eye pin. Those look really pretty too. So just hold, and you just treat it the same way. You thread it on there, hold it in place with your thumb, wrap around, right? And then trim off, and you can see it's nice and secure. There's a little bit of movement here, but for the most part, like it's not going to go anywhere, right? And that makes a really beautiful bangle, you know, with just the pops of every color of rondelle that you want. It makes like a kind of like a tennis bracelet bangle, which is not a thing, but I mean, just imagine if it was. But when you've got a center for your loop that's not as large as a flower, then you really do have this open space here where you can take advantage of using some colored artistic wire, or you could use like rose gold or copper against a different color wire, and you can really get like, you know, it's a simple design, but you can still have just a really eye-catching look just by mixing up your metal colors, by changing the kinds of beads that you use and sit in all of the little holes. And again, the pattern can be whatever you want it to be. The sky is the limit because of all of the holes that you have here. You can make huge patterns that are really wide as the 3D bracelet jig is, or you can stick to, you know, really small patterns here. I will mention though that with the smaller patterns, except for this one, this is one of my favorites. With the smaller patterns, sometimes it helps to use the smaller pegs, right? Just because you've got a little extra space to work with. But one of my favorite designs is probably the easiest design that you can do on the jig, and that is just going in a straight line all the way around the jig. And you can change it up by alternating, right? You can go clockwise, counterclockwise, just like we did with our larger design, or you can go around twice. Let me see. Why? I have nothing today. I have nothing in my hands that I can practice and play with. I'm just gonna have to grab like some tiny wire here. We're just gonna pretend with some tiny wire. Do not use a gauge this small to do this. I'm just practicing and playing. So you can wrap around twice, go to the next, wrap around twice. You don't have to wrap around twice, but I mean, because you really can just wrap around once, but a lot of times I double those wraps up, and then you can spread them apart and hang. You've got two loops, so you can hang two different beads from them. So you can make, let's see if I can slide this off of here. So many different designs, and they don't have to be, I'm gonna have to take the pegs off. They don't have to be super crazy designs. The most simple, straight in a line design is gonna give you really cool results depending on, you know, what you wanna do with it. I mean, you can imagine an entire bangle with that, right? And then you can add whatever you want to the loops, or just leave it a simple, beautiful wire bangle. It doesn't even have to have beads if you don't want it to. Stephanie says, are there patterns that you can find that shows the placement of pegs for different designs? So there isn't a pattern book per se. We did talk about that a couple years back, about doing something like that, or having like pattern sheets. You know how with a flat jig, sometimes there's a pattern sheet that you can put underneath it, kind of like a light bright, and you punch through the pattern to make a pattern that was pre-done. There really isn't anything like that. With all of the designs that are available on the Beadalon website and on the Beadalon and Artistic Wire YouTube channel, you can, you know, you can walk through some of those patterns, but that's really kind of all that there is. To me, you just play with it and come up with some of your favorites and then just draw them out so that you don't forget them. But yeah, as of right now, there's not like a one-stop place where you can get patterns for it. That would be really cool though. I think that would be a lot of fun to have, so that then it kind of takes the guesswork out of it. But as of right now, there isn't. All right, guys, so I didn't exactly finish it because I've got 2 missing holes here, but for the most part, you can see what it looks like and can see what it looks like on. So this one's a little big for me, but I can squeeze it down just like I showed you. I can squeeze it down to make it more suitable for my tiny little twig wrist here, but you can just as easily open it up to adjust it if you need it to be a little bit bigger, right? You can even make really small ones that you can put around your ponytail, which is crazy cool. Can you make the bangle smaller? You can make the bangle smaller. So this one, you know, you can squeeze it down like I showed you. You just very carefully kind of squeeze everything down. You just want to use really small movements. But if you needed a really small bangle, you wouldn't go all the way around the jig, right? You would go around the jig maybe 3/4 of the way so that your 2 ends are further apart. Then when you bring the 2 ends together, it's going to overall make it a smaller bangle design. So you can adjust it that way too if you need to. All right, guys, I'm going to turn you around. All right, do I have a PDF pattern for this bracelet? I don't. You know, but that leads me to something that that I was going to mention. So several years ago at the JTV experience event where we taught a bunch of classes, I taught a bracelet that was very, very similar to this one. Number one, Joan, let me see if I can find that. Let me email Yvette and see if she's got that pattern on hand, because I did have a written pattern for that at one time, and it's very, very similar to this. So let's see what I can find. I wish that I had like enough time in the day so that everything that we did here, I could put into pattern form and then we could upload those PDFs to the group. I really wish I had time to do that, because I feel like that would be amazing. People have asked me, it's been on a lot of people's mind lately if I'm going to do a book. That's still up in the air. I don't know for sure yet. I kind of have got some other projects in the works at the moment. But after the first of the year, that is still on my agenda. So that would definitely be a place where you would have patterns that you could refer back to all the time. And I would probably have to include a 3D bracelet jig pattern because I love it. Leslie says, I need a secretary. You have no idea. You have no idea. I need, like, I seriously need a full-time assistant. It's some of this is getting out of control. And not in a bad way. Let's see, hold on. Question. Can I make this bracelet on a regular jig until I get the round one? You can. You absolutely can. And you can just put it on like a bracelet mandrel or something that is similarly round in shape and kind of curve it around. I definitely would probably tap at it a little bit with like a nylon hammer if you wanted to, just to kind of help bring it into that round shape. Also, if you've got the bracelet bending pliers, you definitely can use those to kind of help to squeeze it into that bracelet shape as well. So yeah, the sky is the limit. Like, this was the answer to that, because before this existed, that's the way people were making wire bangles, was they were making them on a flat jig and then finding ways to get that nice curved shape. This just kind of came in at the right time and made it, you know, made it easier than having to get that shape, because sometimes that can be frustrating. But yes, the answer is yes, 100%, absolutely. Come to California and I'll be your secretary for free, says Leslie. I absolutely would love to, for more than one reason, because my dear friend Jules lives there too. And I have a feeling the two of us would get in a whole lot of trouble if we lived really close together. She also needs an assistant. She probably could use about 4, to be honest with you. But yeah, no, I wish, guys, if I made enough money, I would have an assistant in a heartbeat, because I certainly could use one. That's what I'll start using my affiliate link money for. That can be like my GoFundMe. GoFund the Sarah Assistant program. Sarah needs an assistant, so we're going to use affiliate links as her GoFundMe. Oh man, I'm totally kidding, by the way, you guys. Nicole says she can help loading patterns on the page. Thank you, my dear. That's not the problem. The problem is having the time to make the patterns so that they can be uploaded, right? Oh, goodness. You want to come write the patterns for me? I'll dictate. You write. All right, you guys, that is enough chitter chatter from me today. I am so happy that you guys spend your part of your Friday with me. I appreciate it so much. It is something that I look forward to every week. Super exciting. I love it that I get to come and be with you guys, even the grumpy ones. I love you guys too. And let's see, what else did I want to mention? I want to mention that if you want to catch me again, if you haven't gotten enough of me already today, you can catch me over on the Jewel Loom group. If you're not a member of the Jewel Loom group, come join. We have an amazing community there as well. It's for people who like to loom, whether that's with fibers or with beads. But even if you don't do that yet and you're just interested in doing it, it's a really good place to come because there's tons of education, tons of, resources. And we do a lot of the same kind of chitting and chatting and being silly. And a lot of times it's me and Jules together being silly. This afternoon, I'll be on my own. I've been doing the Fridays without Jules, but on Wednesdays for those Facebook Lives, you can catch me and Jules. And it is always, somebody always says something that gets our giggle boxes going. So come hang out with us there. Come hang out with me. That's at 4 p.m. today over on the Jewel Loom Facebook group. And we're actually using the original Jewel Loom, just kind of going back through how to warp and get started with that one, just as a refresher. Something else? Was there something else? I don't know. That's why I need an assistant. I don't know. I have no idea what's next. Yeah, no, I'm just going to take a quick break. You guys join the group. If you've not joined the group yet, please do that. I know what it was. I'm sitting here looking at this bracelet. Gosh, and Kathleen, you didn't stop me. So I mentioned before that I have taught a bracelet like this not too long ago well, I mean, it has been kind of a while at the customer appreciation event at that place. And you guys, one of these got lost. So whoever was participating in my classes that year that made these, somebody out there lost a bracelet and Kathleen picked it up in the parking lot. She's been holding on to it ever since. So if you took that class and you made one of these bracelets with the check glass flowers, it was very, very similar. It had seafoam green artistic wire on it. Kathleen has it. If you'd like to have it, if you'd like to have it back, she's holding on to it. One day we're going to find the owner of that bracelet. So just so you know, it is in a safe place. Okay, that is it. I really am done now. You guys have a wonderful rest of the day. If I don't see you over on Jewel Loom, have a wonderful weekend, and I will see you guys again, same time, same place, right here next week. Bye, guys.